Hey there. Let's dive deep tonight into something that's puzzled minds for centuries: the nature of time, the fabric of the universe, and the possibility of a fourth dimension. You may be familiar with time as we experience it, a continuous, linear flow of moments. But what if time, in its truest form, isn't at all like that? What if everything we know about time is just a small fragment of a much greater reality? Imagine time is not just a river flowing forward, but a vast, interconnected space, holding the very structure of the universe together. We often think of time as a strict progression, from the past, through the present, to the future. It's something that happens to us, something we're carried through like leaves in a stream. But time, in higher dimensions, could be far more complex. In fact, it might not even flow in one direction at all. Some scientists and thinkers propose that time could be multidimensional, existing not just as a line but as a whole, a space where past, present, and future coexist. To understand this, we have to step away from our usual view of time, linear and confined, and look at it as something far more intricate, something beyond our everyday experience. We've all heard about the idea of the fourth dimension. Usually, we think of it as a theoretical concept, something far removed from our physical world. But what if the fourth dimension isn't just a distant theory, something we only read about in books? What if it's not as abstract as we think? What if, hidden within this dimension, is the very key to understanding the universe? You see, in three-dimensional space, we perceive only a limited slice of reality. What we can see and interact with is constrained by our senses. We experience space, time, and motion within these boundaries. But could there be more, just beyond our reach? In the fourth dimension, things may not be as simple as we expect. While we experience time as a continuous sequence of moments, those moments might be just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Time in the fourth dimension may not just move forward in the way we perceive. Instead, it might be spread out in a more complex way, a spatial construct that isn't bound by the usual constraints of beginning and end. Think of time not as a flowing river, but as a vast ocean where every moment exists all at once. What if everything that has ever happened and will ever happen already exists, all together, right now? The past, present, and future, all woven together, not sequential but simultaneous. This idea challenges everything we think we know about our existence. If time were a true fourth dimension, would we be able to access different points in time as easily as we move through space? Could we travel backward to our past, forward into the future, or even experience multiple realities at once? Imagine the world not as a series of isolated events, but as a map of possibilities, where every moment is connected, every decision is already accounted for in a vast cosmic web. The future is not something that hasn't happened yet, but something that exists, waiting to unfold. But let's step back for a moment and consider something else. The idea of higher dimensions isn't entirely new. In fact, it has been a part of scientific theories for a long time. You've probably heard of Einstein's theory of relativity, which radically reshaped our understanding of space and time. According to this theory, space and time are not separate entities, but are interconnected in what we call space-time. This means that time is not an independent force moving on its own, but is deeply connected with the space we live in. Space-time itself is curved, influenced by gravity and other forces. But this is only the beginning. When we move beyond the three dimensions we can see, scientists hypothesize that there could be additional dimensions we cannot directly perceive, but which may influence everything around us. These additional dimensions could hold the key to understanding the true nature of time. The fourth dimension, for instance, might not be limited to time as we know it. It could be a whole new space, one that links our past, present, and future into a unified whole. But to explore this idea fully, we need to understand that our perception of time is limited by the three dimensions we live in. We experience time as a straight line, a continuous progression. But that may be just the surface of something much more complex. If we lived in the fourth dimension, we would perceive time not as something that happens to us, but as something we could move through freely. Imagine being able to see the entirety of your life laid out before you, from beginning to end, all at once. Every choice, every action, every possibility, all existing simultaneously. The past wouldn't be something behind us, gone forever. The future wouldn't be something ahead of us, unknown and uncertain. Instead, everything would be visible in a single, continuous whole. The boundaries of time would blur, and we would experience reality not as a series of fleeting moments, but as a vast, interconnected continuum. Now, Think about this. What if, at this very moment, we're all part of a larger pattern? What if the events in your life, every small decision, every moment of your existence, is not an isolated, independent event but a thread in a greater tapestry, a pattern woven across the fabric of time? Each choice you make might ripple out and affect other moments, other lives, other places, all within this interconnected web of time. Could your actions in this present moment already be influencing the future? Could events that haven't yet happened be just as real as those that are unfolding right now? This is where it gets truly fascinating. Some scientists and philosophers argue that time, in its higher dimensional form, may allow us to access different timelines. Not just one reality, but many, each one diverging based on the choices we make. Perhaps the universe doesn't unfold in a single fixed way, but instead, it branches into countless possibilities, each one existing as a separate reality. This means that every decision you make could create a new path, a new timeline, one that splits off and exists in parallel with all the others. What we perceive as the present might be just one thread in a vast, infinite web of possibilities. And if this is true, it would mean that time itself is not something linear or static. It's dynamic and multifaceted, full of infinite potential. Every choice, every action, every moment could give rise to new possibilities, new timelines, new realities. Imagine a universe where every possibility exists, where every decision creates a new branch of reality, where time is not just a single flow, but a web of countless threads, all connected in ways we can't fully see. If we had the ability to perceive time in this way, what could we learn about the true nature of our existence? What if the future is not something waiting to happen, but something already present, ready to be experienced? What if we could step into the future, not as something unknown, but as something that already exists, just waiting for us to explore it? The more we explore these ideas, the more we come to realize that time is not just a passive backdrop to our lives. It's an active, dynamic force that shapes everything in the universe, from the smallest particles to the vastest galaxies. It connects us all, across space and across time, creating a cosmic web that ties everything together. What we see and experience is just a small part of this greater structure. And as we begin to understand the fourth dimension, we might discover that time is not something we're just moving through. Time is something we're part of, something that is part of us, and something that shapes everything we do. Imagine what it would be like to step outside of our limited, three-dimensional understanding of time. What would it feel like to perceive the entire sweep of existence, all at once? Would we see the universe as a vast, interconnected whole, where every moment is a thread in an endless tapestry? Would we begin to understand how every choice, every action, every thought ripples out across the fabric of time, creating new possibilities, new paths, and new realities? This is the mystery of the fourth dimension, a mystery that is just beginning to unfold. As we continue to explore the cosmos and the nature of time, who knows what we will discover? But one thing is clear: the universe is much more complex and interconnected than we can imagine. Time is not just a line we walk down, but a vast, multi-dimensional force that holds the universe together in ways we are only beginning to understand. So let's keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep dreaming. Because the more we learn about time and the fourth dimension, the closer we get to understanding the deepest mysteries of the universe itself. Now that we've introduced the concept of time as a higher dimensional force, let's take a closer look at how the fourth dimension might actually function. You might be wondering, how does time, in the context of this mysterious fourth dimension, differ from the way we experience it every day? To answer this, we need to step away from our everyday experiences and start thinking in terms of higher dimensions. In the three-dimensional world we live in, we see and move through space. We understand the world as being made up of length, width, and height. But what if there's another dimension, one that we can't directly perceive, but one that influences everything around us? To start understanding this, it helps to think about dimensions beyond the third. Imagine a two-dimensional world, a flat plane with only length and width. The inhabitants of that world can only perceive movement in two directions, left and right, up and down, but they can't understand the idea of depth. To them, objects don't stick out into a third dimension. Everything is confined to the flat plane. But if you were to enter this world as a three-dimensional being, you would instantly notice things that the two-dimensional creatures could never imagine. You could move in directions they cannot see or comprehend. You could pass through their world without them ever knowing. Now, Imagine that the fourth dimension operates in a similar way. Just as beings in a two-dimensional world can't perceive depth, we, as three-dimensional beings, might not be able to perceive the full depth of the fourth dimension. We experience time as a series of moments that seem to flow from past to present to future. But this is only because we're trapped in three-dimensional space, where we can't see the true nature of time. If we could somehow access this fourth dimension, we might understand that time isn't just a line that we move along. It might be a whole field where every point, past, present, and future, exists simultaneously. Consider the possibility that every event, every moment in history, might already be set within this higher dimensional space. The past isn't something that fades away as we move forward. It exists just as vividly as the present, in a different aspect of the fourth dimension. The same is true for the future. It's not something that's entirely unknown or waiting to unfold. It could already exist in some form, ready for us to experience. If we could move through the fourth dimension, we might be able to perceive time differently, stepping outside the constraints of linearity and experiencing all moments as part of a greater whole. But let's explore this further. What would it be like to see all of time laid out before us? In a higher dimensional reality, time might not just be a straight line or even a branching tree of possibilities. Instead, it might be more like a vast landscape, where each event, no matter how big or small, is a part of a larger, interconnected structure. The choices we make might not create a single, fixed timeline, but instead open up many pathways, branching out like rivers flowing into an ocean of possibilities. What if, in the fourth dimension, time doesn't just flow forward, but spreads out with every moment, past, present, and future, existing all at once, as a part of a greater, timeless web? This way of thinking challenges everything we've come to understand about reality. If time were like this, we could think of it as a kind of field, not something that simply passes or gets used up, but a living, breathing part of the universe, full of potential. Each moment, every event, could be seen as part of a much larger pattern, one that's impossible to fully understand while we are confined to the limitations of three-dimensional space. But what if, by unlocking the true nature of the fourth dimension, we could somehow glimpse this greater pattern? Could we see the universe in a way that transcends our ordinary experiences? To truly understand the fourth dimension, we need to think beyond the idea of time as a river that we travel down. Instead, time might be a vast, complex space that we're all part of, one that stretches in many directions. This is where things get even more interesting. Imagine that time is not just a passive experience, not something that simply happens to us. What if we could interact with it, step through it, and see it from different angles? Could we perceive moments in time the same way we perceive space? Could we look back at the past or forward into the future, not as a series of abstract events, but as tangible places that we could visit, just as we can travel through space? This idea might sound far-fetched, but it's one that has fascinated philosophers, scientists, and science fiction writers for years. The concept of time travel, for example, is often seen as a fantastical idea, something that exists only in books or movies. But if time truly exists as a higher, dimensional structure, then the notion of moving through time could be much less of a fantasy and more of a reality. What if time isn't a strict, linear progression? What if it's more like a landscape, where every moment exists simultaneously, waiting for us to explore? We're used to thinking of the past as something that's gone, something that we can never revisit. But what if the past doesn't really disappear? What if it's still there in the fourth dimension, just as real and tangible as the present? If we could access this higher dimensional space, perhaps we could step back in time and experience the events of the past as if they were happening right now. The same could be true for the future. Instead of being an unknown series of events waiting to unfold, the future might already be laid out in this higher dimensional space. It might be waiting for us to step into it, to experience it just as we move through the present. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. While these ideas may sound intriguing, they also bring up many questions. How could we possibly move through time in this way? How could we access this higher dimensional space that holds the true nature of time? For now, we don't have the answers. But the very possibility of the fourth dimension and its connection to time opens up a whole new realm of exploration. It challenges the way we think about the universe, about our place in it, and about the very nature of reality itself. One thing is clear: the mysteries of time and the fourth dimension are far from being solved. In fact, they may be the key to understanding much more about the universe than we've ever realized. As science continues to explore the boundaries of space and time, we may one day unlock the secrets of this higher, dimensional reality, and in doing so, discover a whole new way of experiencing existence. Time may not be the simple, linear flow that we believe it to be, but rather a complex, multi-dimensional force that connects everything in the universe. And the more we learn about this force, the closer we get to understanding the true nature of the cosmos itself. As we explore the fourth dimension, and the idea of time as a multi-dimensional force, it's important to step back and look at how this fits with what we know about the universe. For centuries, scientists and philosophers have tried to understand the true nature of reality, and the more we learn, the more we realize just how little we know. We think we've figured out how things work, that we understand space, time, and gravity. But what if these are just the surface of something much deeper? What if the universe, in all its complexity, is a giant puzzle, one that we're only beginning to solve? Take, for example, the concept of space-time, which was introduced by Albert Einstein in his theory of relativity. Before Einstein, space and time were thought to be separate and independent. We viewed time as an unstoppable force moving forward, and space as a stage where events unfold. But Einstein changed everything. He showed that space and time are not separate, but a part of the same thing: space-time. This was a huge revelation. It meant that time is not some immutable, constant force. It can be warped and stretched by the presence of mass and energy. Gravity, for instance, bends space-time itself. Think of space-time as a kind of fabric. When a massive object, like a planet or a star, sits on this fabric, it causes the fabric to stretch and curve. This is what we perceive as gravity. Objects like planets and moons don't just pull on each other with an invisible force. Instead, they're moving along the curves in the space-time fabric. The more massive an object, the greater the curve. And the more curved the space-time, the slower time moves in that area. In fact, time itself isn't constant, it's relative. Time flows differently depending on how close you are to a massive object, or how fast you're moving. This has been proven in countless experiments, such as sending highly accurate atomic clocks on airplanes. When the clocks return to Earth, they show tiny but measurable differences in the passage of time. The higher the speed or the stronger the gravitational field, the slower time moves. It's a phenomenon known as time dilation, and it's one of the strangest aspects of Einstein's theory. Now, let's imagine how this idea of warped space-time might relate to the fourth dimension. If time is something that can bend and stretch, what if it can also do more? What if, in higher dimensions, time isn't just something that moves forward, but something that can be manipulated, bent, and even folded like space itself? This is where the concept of time travel comes into play. If time can be warped like space, then it might be possible to travel through it, just as we travel through space. This idea has been explored in both theoretical physics and science fiction. One of the most famous concepts is the idea of a wormhole, a shortcut through space-time that could potentially allow us to travel great distances, or even move backward or forward in time. Wormholes are theoretically possible, according to Einstein's equations. They're often visualized as a tunnel connecting two separate points in space-time. If we could enter one of these tunnels, it might allow us to leap across vast distances, or even skip ahead to a different point in time. While wormholes are still a speculative idea, they are based on the fundamental principles of relativity and the geometry of space-time. But time travel isn't the only mind-bending possibility that arises from the fourth dimension. If time is not a simple, one-way flow, then it could mean that all points in time, past, present, and future, might be connected in a way that we can't yet comprehend. This idea isn't just science fiction. It has roots in the way we understand the universe on the most fundamental levels. In quantum physics, for instance, particles don't behave in the simple, predictable way we expect. They can exist in multiple states at once, and they can even be entangled, meaning that the state of one particle is instantly connected to the state of another, no matter the distance between them. This entanglement suggests that time, at the quantum level, might not be as linear or sequential as we think. In fact, some scientists believe that the key to understanding the fourth dimension might lie in quantum mechanics. Quantum particles don't follow the same rules as larger objects. They can leap between different states, and they seem to exist in multiple places at once. This phenomenon is called superposition. At the quantum level, time might not be the same as it is at the scale of everyday life. Could it be that, in higher dimensions, time operates according to different principles, principles that allow for multiple possibilities, multiple timelines, and even multiple versions of reality? Let's explore this idea further. Imagine for a moment that we could look at all of time as a landscape. Instead of seeing a straight line stretching from past to present to future, we could see every moment, every potential future, every possible outcome laid out before us. If we could perceive time this way, we might realize that every decision we make is not just a single step forward in a linear sequence. Instead, each choice could create a branching pathway, a new reality that splits off from the one we're experiencing. We might be able to see not just our own timeline, but the timelines of countless others, each one existing alongside the others, all part of a much larger, interconnected web of possibilities. What would it be like to live in a world where time isn't a simple, linear flow? To experience reality as a vast, interconnected web of moments, where the past, present, and future are all linked together. In this kind of world, our choices would matter more than ever. Every action, every decision, could send ripples through the fabric of time, creating new paths and new realities. And it might not just be our actions that affect time. It could be that time itself is a living, breathing entity, one that interacts with the universe in ways we can't fully understand. In the fourth dimension, time might not be an unchanging force that moves us along like a river. Instead, it might be a dynamic, fluid field, full of possibilities and potential. If we could access this dimension, we might not just be passive observers of time, but active participants in it. We could step into the past, revisit old memories, and experience them as though they were happening right now. We could travel into the future, not as something distant and uncertain, but as something that already exists, waiting for us to explore. And who knows? We might even be able to influence these moments, shaping the course of our lives and the universe itself. So, as we continue our journey into the mysteries of the fourth dimension, let's consider what this all means for our understanding of time, space, and existence. Time is not just a simple, linear progression. It's a vast, multidimensional force that connects everything in the universe. And as we explore this idea further, we may begin to unlock the secrets of the universe itself, revealing a reality that is far more complex, far more interconnected than we could have ever imagined. As we venture further into the mysteries of the fourth dimension, one of the most intriguing questions arises: could we, as three-dimensional beings, ever truly experience time in the way it's understood in higher dimensions? If time exists as a complex, multi-faceted web, then how do we, limited by our three-dimensional perspective, make sense of it? It's almost as though we're looking at a painting, but only seeing the canvas from one angle, while the entire piece is much larger and more intricate than we could ever imagine. Our view is partial, and the real picture is far more vast. In the third dimension, we experience time as a continuous unidirectional flow, one moment after another. From this viewpoint, it seems almost impossible to imagine how time could be anything but a straight line, and yet there are hints, both in science and in philosophy, that suggest our experience of time is an illusion, a limited view of something much more profound. We might be like the inhabitants of that two-dimensional world we talked about earlier, unable to perceive the higher dimensions that shape everything around us. Just as a flat, two-dimensional being can't perceive the height of an object in three-dimensional space, we might be unable to fully comprehend the true nature of time. However, some theories in physics give us a glimpse into what this might look like. One of the most interesting ideas comes from the concept of block time. Block time suggests that the universe is not constantly unfolding in a linear fashion, but that all events, past, present, and future, are equally real and equally existent. The future isn't some distant unknown waiting to be revealed. Instead, it already exists in the same way that the past does. The present moment is simply where we experience the flow of time, but it is just one part of a larger, unchanging block of time. If this idea is true, it would mean that every moment in time, every decision, every event already exists in a higher dimensional space. Time would no longer be something that happens to us. It would be something we are a part of, something we experience as a part of the larger whole. This brings us to another intriguing possibility: the nature of free will. If all moments exist simultaneously in the fourth dimension, does that mean our choices are already predetermined? If time is a block, with every event fixed in its place, Does that mean we don't have true freedom in the choices we make? This is a classic debate in philosophy, the tension between determinism, the idea that everything is predetermined, and free will, the idea that we can make independent choices. In the context of the fourth dimension, the question becomes even more complicated. If all moments exist at once, then how do we reconcile the idea of making choices with the concept of a predestined timeline? Some theorists argue that we could have both free will and a predetermined reality. This might sound paradoxical, but perhaps the true nature of time and reality is so vast that both can coexist. Our choices could still matter, even if they exist within a larger, unchanging structure. It's possible that, while the overall framework of the universe is set, within that framework, we are free to explore and make decisions, just as a video game's world is set and structured. But the characters within it can still make meaningful choices. Perhaps our reality operates on a similar principle. Let's pause for a moment and think about what it would mean to live in such a reality. If we could perceive all of time as it truly exists in higher dimensions, how would our understanding of life and death change? We often think of death as the end, the final, irreversible moment. But if time is not linear, and all moments coexist in a higher dimensional space, then could death be just another moment, another part of the larger whole? Could we, in theory, experience the end of our lives, not as a finality, but as a part of the grand tapestry of existence? This is a difficult concept to grasp, but it challenges the way we think about the limitations of our lives. Death may not be a boundary in the fourth dimension. It might simply be a shift in our experience, a different part of the same pattern. If we could access the fourth dimension and experience time in its true form, we might no longer see death as an ending, but as a transition, a moment in an ongoing flow, just as real as any other. It would mean that time, far from being a linear sequence, is a vast expanse where everything exists at once. And in this expanse, every moment is connected, every life is intertwined, and every experience is part of the same unfolding story. The concept of the fourth dimension could also open up new ways of thinking about consciousness itself. What is consciousness, if not a way of experiencing time and space? Our sense of self, our thoughts, and our perceptions of the world are all deeply connected to how we experience the passage of time. If time were experienced differently, as a vast field of possibilities, with no strict boundaries between past, present, and future, how might our sense of self change? Would we experience ourselves differently if we could perceive the larger structure of time? Would we become more aware of our interconnectedness with others, more attuned to the timeless nature of existence? In many ways, the fourth dimension challenges everything we think we know about our reality. It forces us to reconsider time, space, and even life itself. But it also opens up a whole new realm of possibilities. It invites us to imagine a world where the rules we've always known don't apply, where the flow of time is not a strict sequence, but a living, breathing force that shapes everything in the universe. And in this world, perhaps the deepest mysteries of existence, life, death, free will, and the nature of the cosmos, are all intertwined in ways we can't yet fully understand. As we continue to explore these ideas, we are left with more questions than answers. The fourth dimension, and its connection to time, may be beyond our current understanding, but the journey of discovery is what makes it so exciting. As we push the boundaries of science, philosophy, and imagination, we get closer to unlocking the secrets of the universe. And in doing so, we may find that the answers we seek are not just out there in the stars, but within us, hidden in the very fabric of time itself. As we dive deeper into these ideas, one thing becomes very clear: the fourth dimension, and its connection to time, challenges everything we think we know about existence. We often view time as a fixed, linear progression, something that moves from the past to the present to the future, one moment after another. But what if this view is simply a limitation of our three-dimensional perception? What if the true nature of time is something far more complex, something we're only beginning to understand? The more we explore this idea, the more we realize that time, as we experience it, may be just one small part of a much larger, much more intricate reality. Let's think about this from a different perspective. Imagine a piece of string stretched out in front of you. From your point of view, it appears to be just a line, a simple one-dimensional object. But if you were able to step outside of the string, to see it from a higher dimension, you would realize that it is part of a much larger structure. It's not just a line, it's part of a vast, interconnected web of possibilities. where every point on the string is connected to every other point, and every possible twist and turn of the string is part of a larger, more complex system. In the same way, time might not be the straight line we think it is. Instead, it could be a multi-dimensional object with countless branches, loops, and interconnections that we can't yet perceive, just as we cannot fully see or understand the higher dimensions of space. We might be similarly blind to the true nature of time. But what if, one day, we could step outside of our limited, three-dimensional view of the world and see time as it truly is? What if we could experience time not as a series of moments that pass us by, but as a living, breathing part of the fabric of the universe? This brings us back to the concept of time travel. The idea of traveling through time has fascinated humanity for centuries. It has been a popular topic in science fiction, with countless stories imagining what it would be like to jump forward or backward in time. But if time is indeed a multi-dimensional force, then time travel might not be as impossible as it seems. If time exists not as a simple, linear progression, but as a vast landscape, then it's conceivable that we could one day find a way to move through it, just as we move through space. This concept of time travel ties into the idea of wormholes, which we discussed earlier. A wormhole is essentially a tunnel through space-time, a shortcut that connects two distant points in the universe. In theory, wormholes could also provide a way to travel through time. If we could enter a wormhole, we might be able to travel not just across space, but across time as well. It's an exciting thought, but it also raises a number of questions. If we could travel through time, what would that mean for our understanding of the universe? Would we be able to change the past? Could we alter the course of events, or would time simply correct itself, like a river flowing back to its original path? These questions highlight the fundamental mysteries of time and space. In our three-dimensional reality, we view time as a fixed, immutable force. But what if, in higher dimensions, time is much more fluid, much more flexible? What if time is not just something that happens to us, but something we can actively influence? What if the future is not a series of unchangeable events, but a vast, open field of possibilities, waiting for us to explore? In a way, this idea of time as a fluid, multi-dimensional force aligns with the way we think about space. We know that space is not just a static, empty void. It is full of energy, full of potential, and it can be shaped and manipulated by the objects within it. In the same way, time might be a dynamic force, one that can be shaped and influenced by the events that occur within it. It might not be something that flows in a straight line, but something that flows through and around us, connecting all events in the universe. This leads us to an even more mind-bending possibility. What if time itself is not just a passive force, but an active participant in the events that unfold in the universe? What if time is not just something that happens to us, but something that plays a role in shaping the very fabric of reality? This idea challenges everything we know about the nature of existence. If time is not a fixed, unchanging force, but an active participant in the events of the universe, then it would mean that our actions, our choices, and our presence in the universe have a far greater impact than we might ever imagine. It's difficult to grasp the full implications of this idea, but it suggests that time is far more than just a measurement of passing moments. It's a force that connects everything, a living, breathing part of the universe that interacts with everything we do. Time might not be a rigid, linear progression at all, but a vast, interconnected web of possibilities, where every moment, every choice, and every action is part of a greater whole. And if we could perceive time in this way, it might change the way we see our place in the universe. It might help us understand that we are not isolated beings, but part of an ongoing process, an eternal flow of energy and events that connects all things in the cosmos. But even as we explore these ideas, there's one question that still lingers. What is the ultimate purpose of time? If time is not just a passive force, if it is an active participant in the universe, then what is its role? What is the driving force behind the flow of time? Is there a deeper meaning behind the way time unfolds, or is it simply a byproduct of the larger structure of reality? These are questions that may never have a clear answer, but they are worth considering as we continue to explore the nature of time and its connection to the fourth dimension. One thing is certain: time is one of the greatest mysteries of the universe. It shapes our lives, it governs our reality, and it connects us to everything around us. But as we continue to explore the fourth dimension, we begin to realize that time is not just something that happens to us. It is something that exists beyond our understanding, something that connects all things, a force that transcends the limitations of space and matter. And as we unlock the secrets of the fourth dimension, we may find that time is not just a measurement of moments, but the key to understanding the very nature of existence itself. As we push further into this expansive idea, it becomes clear that the fourth dimension is not just a realm of abstract theory. It is tied to everything we know about the universe, and in many ways, it shapes the very fabric of reality itself. We've begun to understand that time, far from being a simple backdrop to our existence, is an active, vital force, one that influences the way we experience everything around us. The more we contemplate the fourth dimension, the more we start to see how profoundly it could change our understanding of the universe, and even our place within it. We've already talked about how time is affected by gravity and speed, how it bends and warps in the presence of mass. But what if there is more to time than just its relationship to space? What if time itself is a dynamic force, capable of changing the very structure of reality? To grasp this concept, we must step into the realm of theoretical physics, where ideas stretch beyond the boundaries of what we can currently observe. One particularly fascinating theory comes from the concept of closed time-like curves, CTCs. These are paths in space-time that loop back on themselves. In simpler terms, they are time loops, paths that would allow someone or something to return to an earlier point in time. Imagine that you could travel along one of these loops, going back in time to revisit past moments. It's a mind-bending concept, but it's one that is actually mathematically possible, according to the equations of general relativity. These time loops, which could theoretically exist in the fabric of space-time, would allow for time travel, not in the sense of hopping from one point to another across the cosmos, but traveling within your own timeline, going back to a specific moment in the past. But even with these possibilities, there's still a lot we don't understand. If time loops were real, they would raise serious paradoxes. One of the most famous is the grandfather paradox. If you went back in time and prevented your grandfather from meeting your grandmother, would you cease to exist? Would your actions in the past create an alternate timeline? Or would time itself correct the change to ensure the timeline remains consistent? These are fascinating questions, and while they remain unresolved, they point to the incredible complexity of time and its role in shaping reality. Moreover, the idea of closed time-like curves opens up the question of whether time is truly a continuous loop, or whether it's more like a vast network of branching possibilities. If time is not a straight line but a vast, multi-dimensional web, then each action we take, every choice we make, could split the timeline into new, parallel realities. This concept is explored in the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which suggests that every possible outcome of a quantum event creates a new, parallel universe. If this is the case, then the act of traveling through time, whether to the past or future, might create new realities, each one distinct but equally real. In this way, time and reality become entangled not in a fixed linear pattern, but as an ever-growing tree of infinite possibilities. Imagine, for a moment, that you could step into this multi-dimensional web. If you could see time not as a simple sequence of events, but as a vast, interconnected matrix, would you begin to understand the true nature of choice and consequence? What if every decision, every moment, created an entirely new branch in this web of time? Each choice we make could send ripples through the fabric of the universe, creating new paths, new timelines, new futures. This could mean that time is not a passive force, but an active, ever-changing system, one that we are both a part and a product of. And yet, despite all of these possibilities, we are still bound by the limitations of our three-dimensional existence. As we've discussed, we can't perceive time in its full, multi-dimensional form. We experience it as a constant flow, a series of moments that move from one to the next. But the higher dimensional view of time, one that allows us to see it as a vast, interconnected web, is beyond our reach. Or is it? There is another concept in physics known as the arrow of time, which is the idea that time has a specific direction, from past to present to future. In other words, while the laws of physics are mostly time symmetric, they work the same in both directions. Our experience of time is not. We remember the past, but we can't remember the future. We age, but we can't reverse the process. This asymmetry is often tied to the second law of thermodynamics, which states that entropy or disorder always increases over time. In simple terms, this means that the universe is constantly moving towards a state of greater disorder, and as this happens, the arrow of time points forward, always moving in one direction. But what if the arrow of time itself is just a limitation of our perception? What if, in higher dimensions, time doesn't have to move in one direction? Could it be that, in the fourth dimension, time operates differently? Could we, in some distant future, learn to access the full range of time's potential, to move backward, forward, or even sideways through the fabric of the universe? This idea is tantalizing, but it also raises even more profound questions about the nature of existence. If time is not a strict, one-way flow, then how do we understand the passage of life itself? How do we define the beginning and end of existence if time is not a continuous stream? In a world where time operates in multiple dimensions, could life itself be something more fluid, more open-ended than we ever imagined? These questions point to a fundamental truth. Time is not just something that happens to us. It is an intrinsic part of the universe, and it may be far more complex than we can currently understand. In the fourth dimension, time could be experienced as a vast, interconnected network of possibilities, a web that stretches across the universe, linking every moment, every event, every possibility. And within this web, we might find that our understanding of reality, our sense of self, our choices, and our place in the cosmos is more fluid, more interconnected than we ever realized. This raises an even more profound possibility. What if time itself is not just a force that shapes the universe, but the very essence of existence? If we can begin to understand time in this deeper, multi-dimensional way, we might begin to uncover the true nature of the universe itself. Time might not just be something that flows, but something that creates, something that organizes the cosmos into the intricate, beautiful structure that we see around us. And as we begin to explore the mysteries of the fourth dimension, we might find that time is not just a measurement of moments, but the key to understanding everything, from the smallest particles to the largest galaxies, from the depths of space to the consciousness that shapes our perceptions. As we continue to think about time, we start to realize that it may be more than just a passage from one moment to the next. It could be the very fabric that holds everything together. Imagine if time itself is not just a passive backdrop to events, but an active force that shapes the universe, connecting everything in a dynamic, ever-evolving web. If this is true, then understanding time in its true form could open up entirely new ways of thinking about the universe and our place in it. But what would it mean to truly understand time? How could we, limited as we are in our three-dimensional perspective, begin to comprehend something as vast and multi-dimensional as time itself? Perhaps the key lies in recognizing that the flow of time we experience is only a small part of a much larger reality. Our perception of time is confined to the dimensions we can sense, the three spatial dimensions and one temporal dimension. But what if the true nature of time exists in higher dimensions, where it is not constrained by the same rules we know? The idea of higher dimensional time suggests that time could be experienced as a vast landscape, stretching in all directions, past, present, and future existing simultaneously. We as three-dimensional beings are limited to a narrow slice of this landscape. We only experience time in one direction, moving from the past through the present and into the future. But if we could somehow perceive time from a higher dimensional perspective, we might see that all points in time, all events, all experiences, are equally real and present, just like different locations in space. In this view, time is not linear, and events don't unfold in a simple, one-way sequence. Instead, time is a complex, interconnected structure where past, present, and future coexist in a vast, multidimensional field. One interesting way to think about this is to imagine time as a great book, with every moment of existence written on its pages. In our three-dimensional world, we experience only the current page, the page we're on right now. But what if we could flip through the pages and see not only the events of the past, but also the events of the future, all laid out before us? What if, from a higher dimensional perspective, all the pages of the book existed at once, and our experience of flipping from one page to the next was merely an illusion, a limitation of our perception? This idea of time as a multi-dimensional entity has profound implications, especially when it comes to concepts like fate, free will, and the nature of reality itself. If time is not a simple, linear progression, then what does it mean for us to make choices? Are our choices already written in the book of time? Or do we have the ability to change the future, to rewrite the next page? These are questions that philosophers, physicists, and thinkers have wrestled with for centuries. And while we may never have all the answers, The very act of considering these questions opens up new avenues for understanding the universe. In this multidimensional view of time, it's not just the past and the future that exist simultaneously. Everything exists together. The moment you are experiencing right now, the thoughts you're having, the actions you're taking, they are all part of a larger whole, a single, continuous structure that stretches through all dimensions of time. If we could experience time in this way, we would no longer see ourselves as isolated beings, moving along a single path through time. Instead, we would see ourselves as interconnected with every moment, every event, every possibility. We would be aware of the vastness of time, not as a distant, abstract concept, but as a living, breathing force that is woven into the very fabric of our existence. This idea challenges everything we know about reality. It forces us to reconsider our understanding of life, death, and everything in between. If time is not linear, then does that mean death is not the end of the story? If we could see time as a vast, interconnected web, would we understand that life and death are just different parts of the same continuous flow? This is a difficult concept to grasp, but it offers a radically different way of thinking about existence. In the higher dimensional view of time, life could be seen not as a fleeting moment between birth and death, but as part of a larger, infinite process. Death might not be the final chapter, but simply another page in the book of existence. This idea is also tied to the nature of consciousness. Consciousness, after all, is our awareness of time and space. It's what allows us to perceive the passage of time, to remember the past, and to imagine the future. But what if consciousness itself is not limited to a single point in time? What if consciousness is a multi-dimensional phenomenon, capable of perceiving not only the present moment, but also the past and future? What if our awareness of time is not confined to a single, linear experience, but spans across the entire landscape of time, allowing us to experience all moments as interconnected? This opens up fascinating possibilities for how we might understand our place in the universe. If consciousness is not limited to the present, but instead spans all dimensions of time, then our sense of self could be far broader and more interconnected than we realize. We might see ourselves not as isolated beings, moving through a single timeline, but as part of a larger, interconnected web of existence. In this view, the past and future are not separate from us. They are a part of who we are, shaping and being shaped by our consciousness in a continuous, dynamic flow. If this is true, it could radically change the way we think about the nature of reality itself. Perhaps reality is not a static, fixed thing, but a fluid, ever-changing process, shaped by the interplay of time, consciousness, and the universe itself. In this view, time is not a one-way flow, but a vast, interconnected network of possibilities, and we are active participants in this network. Every choice we make, every thought we have, every action we take, ripples through the fabric of time, creating new possibilities, new timelines, new realities. This perspective challenges the traditional view of reality as something fixed and unchanging. It suggests that reality is not a single, linear path but a dynamic, ever-evolving process, shaped by the choices and actions of conscious beings. And in this process, time is not a passive backdrop, but an active force, weaving together the fabric of existence, connecting all things, and creating new possibilities with every moment. The more we think about time, the more we begin to realize that it is not something we can simply measure or track. It is a living, breathing part of the universe, a force that shapes everything around us. And as we begin to understand its true nature, we might find that time holds the key to unlocking some of the deepest mysteries of existence. The fourth dimension is not just a theoretical concept, it is a profound aspect of reality, one that shapes the very nature of time, space, and consciousness. And as we continue to explore its mysteries, we may find that the answers we seek are not just out there in the universe. They are within us, woven into the very fabric of our existence. As we move deeper into our exploration, we begin to touch on the very essence of existence itself. The more we consider the fourth dimension, the more we realize that it doesn't just offer us a new way to think about time. It challenges the very nature of reality and the way we experience the world. Time, as we've known it, may not be a simple, linear progression. It may be a multi-dimensional force, one that transcends our understanding and reshapes everything we think we know about the universe. The more we dive into this concept, the more we are forced to question the structure of reality. We live in a world where we perceive time in one direction, from past to present to future. But what if this is just a small slice of a much larger, infinitely more complex reality? What if time exists not in a linear fashion, but in a way that allows all possibilities, past, present, and future, to coexist at once? In such a view, time is not a simple ruler, measuring the distance between events. Instead, it is a rich, interconnected fabric that ties together all things, across all dimensions. This kind of thinking opens up new possibilities for how we understand our place in the universe. If time is not just a one-way flow, but an interconnected web of potential realities, then each of us is not a passive participant in the unfolding of time, but an active agent, capable of influencing and shaping the future. In a way, the future is not predetermined, but a field of endless possibilities, each shaped by the choices we make. Just as space can be bent and shaped by gravity, perhaps time can be bent too, shaped by our actions, our consciousness, and our understanding of the fourth dimension. The connection between time and consciousness is one of the most intriguing aspects of this idea. If time exists as a multi-dimensional entity, and if our consciousness can perceive not just the present moment, but the entirety of time, then what does that mean for the way we experience life? Imagine if we could step outside of our linear perception of time and see it as a whole, not just as a series of discrete moments, but as a vast, interconnected landscape, where past, present, and future are all part of a single, continuous flow. How would we live our lives if we could see all of time, all of history, as interconnected, as one? This thought brings us back to the idea of free will. If time is not a fixed, one-way flow, but a vast web of potentialities, then our choices become even more important. The decisions we make ripple through the fabric of time, creating new possibilities, new branches in the timeline. We are not simply moving along a predetermined path, but actively shaping the future with every choice we make. The future is not written in stone, it is a living, evolving process, one that we are an integral part of. This realization could change everything about how we approach life. If we truly understood our power to influence time in the future, we might see ourselves as co-creators of reality rather than passive observers. But even as we begin to understand time as a multi-dimensional force, we are still left with some difficult questions. If time can be influenced in such profound ways, what happens when different timelines collide or intersect? Could events in one timeline affect events in another? If time is not a single, linear flow, but a web of possibilities, then what happens when two or more timelines overlap, when the past and the future touch? Could we create paradoxes, or would time correct itself, ensuring that the flow remains consistent? These questions remind us just how complex and mysterious the nature of time truly is. While we may have some understanding of how time behaves in our three-dimensional world, the true nature of time may lie far beyond our grasp, in the higher dimensions of space and time. What if the way we experience time is just a limitation of our three-dimensional senses? What if, from a higher dimensional perspective, the flow of time is entirely different, something that we cannot even begin to comprehend? Could it be that the passage of time is simply an illusion, a side effect of the way we experience the universe? As we explore these possibilities, we begin to see that time is not something that exists out there. It is an integral part of us. It shapes our experiences, our memories, and our consciousness. Time is not just something we move through, it is something we participate in, something that we help to create with every thought, every action, every moment. If time is truly a multi-dimensional force, then we are not simply passive beings, carried along by the current of time. We are active participants in the creation of time itself, shaping its flow, influencing its course, and co-creating the reality we experience. This realization takes us back to the idea of time travel. If time is indeed a multi-dimensional force, then the possibility of traveling through time is not as impossible as we once thought. It is not just about moving from one point in time to another. It is about accessing the full potential of time itself, stepping outside of our limited perception of past, present, and future, and experiencing time as a living, breathing force. In such a view, time travel is not about changing the past or predicting the future. It is about expanding our consciousness to perceive time in all its vastness, to see the connections between all things, to understand the deeper structure of the universe. In this way, time travel becomes not just a scientific pursuit, but a philosophical one. It challenges us to rethink everything we know about reality, to question the very nature of existence itself. If we could experience time as it truly is, as a multi-dimensional landscape full of infinite possibilities, we would see the universe in a completely new light. We would understand that everything is interconnected, that every moment is part of a larger whole, and that the flow of time is not something that happens to us, but something we help to create. As we reflect on these ideas, we are faced with a profound truth: the universe is not just a collection of objects and events, but a living, breathing process. And time is the force that organizes and connects this process, weaving together all the threads of existence into a single, unified whole. Time is not just a measurement. It is the very essence of the universe, shaping everything from the smallest particles to the largest galaxies. And as we begin to explore the fourth dimension, we may find that time itself is the key to unlocking the deepest mysteries of the cosmos. So, as we conclude this exploration into the fourth dimension and the nature of time, one thing becomes clear. Time is not just a concept to be understood. It is a force to be experienced. The more we open ourselves to the mysteries of time, the more we begin to see that we are not simply moving through time. We are part of it, and it is part of us. We are co-creators of time, shaping the flow of the universe with every thought, every action, every moment. And as we continue to explore the fourth dimension, we may come to realize that the true nature of time is not something we can understand with our minds alone, but something we must experience with our hearts, our consciousness, and our very being. As we dive deeper into the infinite complexities of time and the universe, we begin to see that the questions we've been asking are not just intellectual exercises. They touch on something much deeper, something more profound. The more we explore the nature of time, the more we realize that it is not just a scientific concept, nor is it merely a philosophical curiosity. Time, in its highest sense, is the foundation of everything that exists. It is the very heartbeat of the cosmos, the thread that ties everything together. We've already examined the possibility that time might not be a linear flow, but a vast, multi-dimensional structure. If this is the case, the implications are enormous. If past, present, and future are not distinct from one another but are interconnected, then everything we experience is part of a larger, unified whole. This idea challenges our conventional way of thinking about cause and effect. In our everyday experience, we see time as a sequence of events. One thing happens after another. But in a multi-dimensional view of time, events may be interconnected in ways we cannot perceive. The past influences the present, and the present can influence the future. Time, in this sense, becomes a living, breathing organism, evolving constantly and weaving together every possible moment. At first glance, this might seem overwhelming. How could we ever hope to understand something so vast and complex? But when we start to think of time as a multi-dimensional force, we begin to see the potential for new kinds of understanding. Instead of seeing time as a sequence of isolated events, we could start to view it as an intricate, interconnected web of possibilities. This view doesn't just change the way we think about time, it changes the way we think about the entire universe. Think about the idea of a block universe, where all of time, past, present, and future, exist simultaneously, as if it were laid out in front of us, like a giant block. In this view, every moment of time is equally real. It's not as if the past is gone, the present is here, and the future is unknown. Instead, all moments exist together, and our perception of time is simply our way of moving through this vast block. The illusion of time passing is a product of our limited perspective as three-dimensional beings. If we could somehow expand our consciousness to see time from a higher dimensional perspective, we might see the entire block at once, experiencing all of time in its fullness. But even as we entertain these ideas, we are still left with the question of how we can relate to time in a meaningful way. After all, our daily lives are governed by the linear flow of time. We wake up, we go to work, we make decisions. All of these things happen in a sequence, and our experience of time is tightly connected to this sequence. How can we reconcile this with the idea that time is a multi-dimensional web, where all moments coexist? The key to understanding this might lie in the nature of consciousness itself. If time is a multi-dimensional entity, then perhaps our experience of it is not just passive. Perhaps our consciousness plays a more active role in shaping the flow of time. If we can expand our awareness, if we can tune into the deeper currents of time, we might be able to experience time in a way that transcends our ordinary perception. This doesn't mean we can stop time or travel freely through it. But it might mean that, as we deepen our understanding of time, we also deepen our connection to the universe itself. In this sense, understanding the fourth dimension and the multi-dimensional nature of time could lead us to a more profound connection with reality. Imagine being able to perceive time not as a linear path, but as a vast, interconnected field, where every choice, every action, ripples through the fabric of existence. This would change the way we live our lives. We would no longer see ourselves as passive observers of time, helplessly caught in its flow. Instead, we would see ourselves as active participants, co-creators of the universe, shaping the very course of events with every decision we make. But this is not just a philosophical idea. There are real, scientific theories that support this view. One of the most intriguing is the concept of quantum entanglement. In the quantum world, particles can become entangled, meaning that their properties are linked, even when they are separated by vast distances. A change in one particle can instantaneously affect its entangled partner, regardless of the distance between them. This phenomenon suggests that the universe is deeply interconnected, that all things, even across time and space, are linked in ways we don't yet fully understand. If the universe is fundamentally interconnected like this, then the flow of time might also be interconnected, with every moment influencing every other moment. Imagine if we could harness this interconnectedness. If time is not simply a passive force, but an active, dynamic entity, what would happen if we could understand it fully? What if we could tune into the deeper structure of time and use that understanding to shape our lives, our actions, and our future? This is the realm of potential that opens up when we start to think of time as a multidimensional, living force. It's not just about understanding the past, present, and future as separate entities. It's about understanding that time itself is a force that shapes the very fabric of the universe. The deeper we go into this understanding, the more we begin to see that everything, from the smallest particles to the largest galaxies, is part of a vast, interconnected web. Time doesn't just flow, it is woven into the fabric of reality, linking everything together in a continuous, ever-evolving process. And this brings us back to the idea of free will. If time is a multi-dimensional entity, where past, present, and future are interconnected, do we still have free will? Or are our actions and choices predetermined by the larger structure of time? This is one of the most profound questions we can ask. On one hand, if time is truly a block, if all moments exist simultaneously, then it might seem as though our choices are already written into the fabric of time. But on the other hand, if time is an interconnected web of possibilities, then perhaps our choices create new paths, new realities, new timelines. In this view, free will is not just about making choices within the framework of time. It's about actively shaping time itself. As we continue to explore these ideas, we are led to a deeper understanding of reality. Time, as we have known it, is not just a sequence of moments, it is the very structure that holds the universe together. Time is not simply something that happens to us, it is something that we shape, that we influence, that we are a part of. Our understanding of time is not limited to the past, present, and future as we experience them. Instead, time is a vast, interconnected web, stretching across dimensions, linking everything in the cosmos. And this leads us to the ultimate realization: the true nature of the universe is not a static, fixed thing. It is a dynamic, ever-evolving process, one that is shaped by time, consciousness, and the choices we make. We are not passive observers of time, we are active participants in the creation of reality itself. Time is not a force that controls us, it is a force that we co-create, shaping the course of events with every moment, every choice, every thought. As we continue to explore the mysteries of the fourth dimension and time itself, we realize that the answers to the deepest questions of existence lie not just in the realm of science, but in our ability to understand and experience time in a whole new way. The more we open ourselves to the mysteries of time, the more we begin to see that time is not just something we pass through. It is the very essence of existence, and we are a part of it, not just as passive beings, but as active creators of the universe itself. As we come to the end of this journey through the nature of time, the fourth dimension, and our place within the cosmos, we find ourselves standing on the threshold of a deeper understanding. Time, as we've explored it, is not merely a passing sequence of moments, but a profound, multi-dimensional force that shapes every aspect of existence. Our perception of time, constrained by our three-dimensional world, is just a small glimpse into a far vaster and more intricate reality. By considering time as a living, interconnected fabric, we begin to see ourselves not as isolated beings, moving along a singular, predetermined path, but as active participants in the continuous flow of existence. The future is not a fixed destination, but a field of infinite possibilities, shaped by the choices we make and the consciousness we cultivate. We are creators of time itself, and with each decision, each thought, each action, we contribute to the unfolding of the universe. In this larger view, everything is interconnected. The past, present, and future are not separate entities, but part of a unified whole. The universe, in all its complexity and beauty, is not just a collection of objects and events. It is a living, evolving process woven together by the threads of time. And as we come to understand the true nature of time, we realize that we are not just moving through it. We are part of it, shaping it, and being shaped by it. In the end, the mysteries of time are not something we can fully grasp with our limited human minds. But by expanding our awareness and embracing the idea that time is more than what we perceive, we open ourselves to new possibilities, new ways of seeing, and new ways of being. We may never fully understand the fourth dimension, but the exploration itself can lead us to a deeper connection with the universe and with ourselves. As we move forward in our lives, let us carry with us the understanding that time is not a force that controls us. It is a force we can shape and influence. We are not mere passengers on a journey through time. We are active participants, co-creators of our own reality. And as we continue to explore the mysteries of time, let us remember that the answers we seek are not just out there in the universe. They are within us, woven into the very fabric of our existence. The universe is vast, and time is its heartbeat. We are part of it, and it is part of us. And with that thought we can rest, knowing that we are a part of something much larger, something infinitely mysterious and beautiful, that stretches far beyond our understanding, yet is intertwined with every moment of our lives. Good night.